Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new and you're stopping by for the first time, welcome. My name is Melissa and I love to do all things crafty on a budget, especially Dollar Tree DIYs, farmhouse decor, and much more. So if that's something you're interested in, I would love it if you would stick around by clicking the red subscribe button and then tap the bell and all to be notified every single time I upload. So for today's video, we have 5 Dollar Tree fall farmhouse decor DIYs, and I'm really excited for this video, you guys. Every video I try to go better and better. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but just buckle up. This video is a little longer than my normal videos because there are so many steps in each project. So I just wanted to mention that really quick. Also, don't forget to leave this video a big thumbs up if you enjoy it. If you're new, introduce yourself in the comments down below. I started a Facebook page. I will leave the link in the description box as well as my P.O. box. So with all that being said, let's jump right in.
I want to be daring, baby, dance the night away. I let my head down if I want.
First things first, I start with this little truck from Dollar Tree. It's a little construction truck, and I start by taking it out of the package, and then I take some needle nose pliers and just pop those wheels right off. So once I popped the wheels off, there was still some of the plastic still left over on the round part that's holding the wheel together. So I just took some scissors and I cut all that excess off. I take that little tray outside and I spray it with some Rust-Oleum hammered spray paint. I let that dry, and then I take these 2 signs, I take that little banner off both, and then I take my staple remover and remove the handle. Next, I just take some popsicle sticks and I glue these together, rather side by side. I glue them long ways because I want this to be a really long sign. So I just glue them together with glue sticks and hot glue. Once I have them glued together, I flip it around and just sand anything that needs sanded, and then take my lightweight spackling from Dollar Tree and I just fill in the crack where I glued these together. So once I have that all spackled, I do set this aside because this spackling takes a little bit to dry, you guys. It dries in just a few minutes and then you can paint it, but definitely wait for it to dry. So I took these pumpkin ornaments from Dollar Tree and I leave 1 hole, and then I take 2 more and cut them directly in half. The easiest way to do this is just to take a utility knife and score it and then pop them apart. I then take my Titebond and I glue on each end, and then in the middle I take some hot glue because the Titebond is going to hold it together for long term, and the hot glue is going to make it stick quicker, so that way I can go ahead and paint this. So I start by gluing 1 down into the middle, and then I take the other 2 pieces. You're going to have a leftover piece, but I always save my scraps. But I just take another piece and then glue it in between those 2 and then on the other side. If that makes no sense whatsoever, you guys can see what I'm doing here. I don't know. Sometimes it's easier to just show you better than explain to you, but you guys say that I do a good job explaining, so I hope I do. Sometimes I feel like I don't, but I guess that's life, right? So anyway, once I have these all glued down, I wanted this to look like a 3D pumpkin. That's why I glued it this way, and I really love the way that it turned out. But once I had it all glued together, I just painted the whole thing with some Moss Waverly chalk paint. Once I have that done, then I go in and I sand my sign because it's finally dry, and I get questions on my little finger sander. It's linked in my Amazon favorites under micro zip sander. Once I have it sanded, I just take some white Waverly chalk paint and my favorite brush. These are also linked down below, and I don't give it a really good coat. I want this to look distressed, so I give it a distressed coat of paint, if that makes sense. I went on my computer, I printed off the word welcome, leaving out the O, because that's where our pumpkin is going to be, and then I just use my graphite paper to trace that on. I will leave the font and the font size in the description box as well. I then just take my Sharpie paint pen and I go over all those letters. Now this is one of those things where you want to pop on a show, take your time, and just go over this lettering. It does take a little bit, but in the end it's so worth it, especially if you can't afford a Cricut. And I get comments on all the time thanking me that I show you guys how to do this without using a Cricut. So I guess I lost the clip, but I did print off these pumpkins, and I thought something was missing at the bottom of this sign. So I did just print off some pumpkins, trace those on, and I went over them with some paint. I did leave a few of the clips in of me painting. It took me a good while to paint these just because I'm so OCD and everything has to be perfect, but I did want to show you guys how I achieve these colors. And you know, I always start out with yellow if I'm not doing like a white pumpkin, because I think for pumpkins, yellow give it such a good I don't even know how to explain it, but I think the yellow gives it such a good base color. So I start out with the yellow, and then I go in with the other colors while the paint is still wet. And then that way you get kind of like an ombre effect, if that makes any sense. But I had to bring you over to my other table because this sign is so long that it would not fit in frame for you guys to see what I was doing. So that's why a little change of scenery, but we do eventually go back to my craft table. So I'm just going to let these clips play of me showing you how I achieve these colors for the pumpkin. And I did just want to mention, you guys, this is much easier than it looks. I'm not an amazing painter. I'm not a professional. I just kind of wing it, to be honest with you. So please don't get discouraged. If you are, just take a piece of scrap paper and practice. It's really, really easy, I promise you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me or comment down below. You guys know I always answer you back, and I will do my best to explain further if you do have any questions.
Last night we had something, tonight I'll be guessing, but I don't really have a case. You don't have to mention, you just like their attention. It's written all over your face. I don't wanna play the quiet time when I'm near you, reading old messages on my phone every time I see you. Tell me, is this part of an act, just to keep your image intact? If you think that strategy's smart, I'm not gonna defend my beating heart. Defend my beating heart.
So once I have all the painting done and the distressing on the pumpkin, I did just take some hot glue and I made sure where I wanted the pumpkin first and then glued it down where I wanted it. Once I have it glued down, I was just going to be done with this project, but I thought that some distressing around the sign would look really good. So I just take some antique wax and I distress all the way around this. For fall, usually I use like black to distress if the sign is white, but for fall, I think that the antique wax really makes it look old and rusted. So it's up to you if you want to use black, if you don't want to do it at all, or if you want to use brown or the antique wax. I really think it makes it look finished. So last but not least, I take this D hook. I got this pack of hooks from Amazon. These are also linked in the description box because it's such a good deal. So I definitely recommend these. But anyway, this sign is really thin, so you definitely don't want to use a screw. I just took some hot glue because not only is it thin, but it's really light, so hot glue will definitely hold this D-ring on there. So I hot glued it down, and then I just reinforced it with some hot glue. And that is it for that sign, you guys. This one did take a little bit, but it is totally worth it. I feel like you could buy it out of a high-end store. So now that this little tray is dry, we're going to work back on this one. I start by just taking the wheels, and I make a mark where the wheel is going to be on either side, and then I take a dowel, measure it, and then I just use scissors to cut that down. So I do this for both sides, the front and the back. And once I have both dowels cut, then I just put a dab of hot glue on that part that was holding the wheel to the other truck. I hold my dowel rod down. Once that's dry, I take the other side, glue that side, and then hold it in place until it's dry. You definitely want to make sure you're holding this until it's dry because it will fall off if not. Next, I just take these little wheels, and if you look at a wagon, normally the inside part of the wheel is white. So I did just take a small brush and some white Waverly chalk paint, and I painted that inside of the wheel white. And I did do that to all 4 wheels just to make them all look cohesive, but I'm sure that that is pretty self-explanatory. Once I have my wheels all done, then I take some elephant Waverly chalk paint and a natural sponge, and I just sponge that all the way around this tray. We're going to galvanize this. If you guys have been around for any amount of time, then you know this technique like the back of your hand. But if you're new, the elephant is just going to tone that silver down, and then the white, because after we do the elephant, then we're going oh my god, you guys, I cannot freaking talk. I guess that's what happens when you have a newborn. Anyway, once we're done with the elephant, then we're going to go in with the white Waverly chalk paint and just dab all the way around it as well. And like I said, the elephant's going to tone it down, and then the white is going to make it look like the galvanized. So I just took a regular craft stick, cut it in half, and then I glued it together like a hitch. And then I took and I glued it to the front of our little wagon. Once I glued that on, then I take a little bit larger dowel rod and I just measure that. You guys can wait to do this after you put your sides on. I originally was not going to do that, but so I ended up cutting a shorter piece than what I really wanted, so I did fix that. But just wait until you have your sides on and then you can do this step. But basically I just measured a piece of the dowel rod for the handle, and then once I cutted it, I sanded it down, and then I needed another piece for the actual handle. So I just take one of my square dowel rods that I use all the time, I measure it, and then I take my little mini miter saw. This is also always linked down in my Amazon favorites because I get so many questions about it. But anyway, after I marked it, then I cut that little piece down. Once I cut that piece down, then I go ahead and I glue that on. But like I mentioned before, I would just wait to do this because you will have to disassemble it if you do it right now. So once I had that done, I take this is a pack of dabbers. This is also linked in my Amazon favorites. I usually don't do it this way just because I really don't like to use stencils that are non-adhesive, but when you galvanize stuff, you can't use graphite paper. It does not work. So I did just stencil on Farm Fresh to the side of our little wagon. Obviously, this is your preference as well. You could put any little saying you want on there, but I did want to be able to change this out for every season. So I didn't want to put like Harvest Blessing or anything like that. After I stenciled everything on, I did just take a small black paintbrush and I just go in those little, when you're using stencils, they have those little spaces on it, and I don't really like that, so I did just fill those in. And then I took 4 Jenga blocks from Dollar Tree. I had these brown ones that are not very pretty just sitting in my stash, so for the bottom that you're really not going to see, I did use those for this, and I did glue 2 together and then put one on one end and one on the other because I want our wheels to stick out rather than be flush to the bottom of our wagon. So I would recommend doing this step afterwards as well, but I did paint them silver because when we glue the wheels on, the hot glue did not want to stay, and I did have to glue it down with Titebond. Not a big deal, but this is why I do the trial and error, and then I'm able to tell you guys the best way to do it so that you don't make the same mistakes I did. When I do these projects, you guys, I am doing them right along with you. I don't do like a trial run or anything. So basically I'm just winging it right here with you guys. So after I went ahead and painted these silver, I think that if I used chalk paint, it would have sticked really well. So if you're going to do this first, then just use chalk paint, and then you can go ahead and use hot glue, but I used acrylic paint and it was shiny, so I think that's why it didn't stick. Next, I just take some large popsicle sticks. My husband got me these from Home Depot, but I do know that Dollar Tree definitely has these. So what I did was hold one up to the side. I marked it with my pencil. I cut down 4 pieces the exact same length. And then once I had my 4 pieces cut, then I measure for the pieces that are going to hold the sides on. So basically I then just cut 5 more in half, and that is what is going to hold these side pieces on. Once I had all those cut, then I go in and I start gluing the sides on. So I take those half pieces and I glue them all on each corner and then one in the middle of the longer sides. If that makes no sense at all, which I think it does. I can't ever tell you guys, but once I had those glued down, then I go in and I glue the middle pieces. Once I had all those glued down on all 4 sides, then I go in with the pieces that I cut for the longer sides.
You knocked on my window and slept on my pillow, then said you had found your place. Not sure if I want this. You don't think that I notice. This isn't like giving you space. I don't wanna play the quiet type when I'm near you, pretending that I don't know who you are every time I see you. Tell me, is this part of an act just to keep your image intact? If you think that strategy's smart, I'm not.
So once I did the side pieces, then I just measure the back pieces, and I purposely waited to do this because I wanted the front and the back pieces to kind of close this in, if that makes sense. So I just measure and I cut those down as well, and you only need 2 popsicle sticks and 4, I think actually 4 popsicle sticks to do this. And then once I had all my pieces cut, just like the side pieces, I did just go ahead and glue those down.
Talk to me, 'cause I'm not gonna defend my beating heart. Defend my beating heart.
So once we have all our sides put on, I am loving this, you guys. I'm really impressed with the way it turned out. Then I go ahead and see here, you can see that I'm gluing these wheels down to the front of those Jenga blocks and the back with some hot glue, and then I hold it in place until it dries. And it did stay at first, but they ended up popping off. So once they popped off, I just peeled off the glue as best as I could, and then I just glued it down with some more of that tight bond, and it did end up sticking, so thank God for that. But anyway, I would definitely recommend to paint these with chalk paint or just glue them on first. But I don't know, sometimes I work backwards and it is what it is, but I try to enforce it with some hot glue, but that didn't work either. Last but not least, for this little wagon, I just paint the hitch and the handle. So I do that with some ink Waverly chalk paint. And I don't know, you guys, like I always say, I can never pick a favorite, but I am leaning towards this wagon for my favorite for this video. But you guys can let me know when the video is over in the comments down below which project was your favorite, per the usual. Moving on to the next project. This one was pretty simple, but I just took one of these wood pumpkins from Dollar Tree. I paint it with some Moss Waverly chalk paint. While the paint is still dry, I take some ink Waverly chalk paint on the end of my paintbrush, and I just go ahead and I make like marks where the pumpkin, like just add dimension. I don't know what the heck I'm trying to say. It's been a long night, you guys, but if you guys are seeing this video on Friday, it is an absolute miracle that I'm getting this video out to you guys, but I definitely wanted to. Anyway, I just use the black to give it some dimension while the paint is still dry, and if you go crazy like me, then just go back in with some of the moss and go over it a little bit. Once it dries, it looks really, really good, but I did want to add some shading also to the edges of this project. Once I had this all painted, then I set it aside to dry, and then once it's dry, I take some of these natural beads, and I didn't mark it, I just kind of winged it, and in the end it wasn't perfect, but you couldn't really tell. I just go around like where the indentations would be in the pumpkin with these natural unfinished wooden beads. These are also linked in my Amazon favorites. I get them in bulk. I really love them, so definitely it's a good deal, as well as if, or instead of you guys, I just have to laugh at myself because I can never talk. Anyway, if you were to get them from Michael's, they're more expensive, is what I was trying to say. Anyway, I just continue where the indentations would be in this pumpkin with these beads. Once I have all my beads put down, then I take these leaves from this little truck sign from Dollar Tree. I did happen to have two of them, so I did use both of the metal leaves off of these signs for either side. I pop that raffia bow right off, and then I glue these down on either side. I wrap the stem with some jute. I add the raffia bow back to right up at the top of the stem, not back to the leaf. And then I take this thankful sign from Dollar Tree. It comes in a pack of 3 different metal wording, and then I just go ahead and glue that down. Once I have all that done, then I just distress around the metal parts with some ink Waverly chalk paint, and then that project is done. It was really easy, and it really didn't take very long, so I'm definitely going to be putting this up this year.
Did a lot of bad things, and never did I give in, just 'cause the thought of being vulnerable made me feel never felt home till you entered my door. And from that moment I knew that a home is whatever you choose. That's the thing about you. The best thing I did, and I want you to know, was letting you in. From that moment I knew that you were all I missed. Baby, it took just one kiss. 'Cause here in your arms I can finally let go. The rest of the world is outside when you make sure I'm all you missed. Baby, it takes just one kiss. Many years have gone by, many tears have dried out. I know that I will be with you as long as you still want me to.
Okay guys, so this is the easiest of all our projects. I take one of these decor pieces, pop that gather sign off. I take a piece of scrapbook paper from Hobby Lobby and I just use my finger to push it down to see where it will fit inside of here. I take my glue stick and I just glue all around the edges and then an X, glue that or pop that right in there, press it down and smooth it out. And then once I had it smoothed out, I just took the gather sign back and I glued it down to the middle right where I popped it off from. I took some ink Waverly chalk paint and my natural bristle brush, surprise, surprise, and I just dry brush around the edges just to accentuate the edges, if that makes sense. Once I had that dry brushed, I made a simple bow of buffalo check and a small jute and glued that to the middle. And then that was it for that sign. If you guys want to see my bow trick, I will leave it in the cards in the right hand corner. Last but not least, we're finally coming to the end. I wanted to make this little ladder, so I took some large stir sticks and some small stir sticks. You need 4 small and 2 large, and we're just going to create a little ladder. I laid it out, marked it, cut them down with scissors, and then I glued them down. I did a dab of hot glue and a dab of tight bond on each side, again just to make it last and make it hold together quick. Next, I just take 4 of these little pumpkin ornaments from Dollar Tree. I painted 2 with the moss and 2 with white, and I just did the exact same thing that I did with the bigger pumpkin with the smaller pumpkins, using the black to give it dimension. And then when I did the white, I just used the same exact brush that I used for the moss colored pumpkins, and then that way it would give it dimension while I was painting it with the white. And then I just went back in with some more moss and I gave it more dimension. And like I said before, the easiest way to do this is just go in the direction where the indentations would be and then use your brush to kind of smooth it out, and it makes it look really good. I don't know, I like that technique, but you can let me know in the comments down below if you would just leave these plain or if you would do the same and give them some dimension. So like I said, I just did the white ones as well, and I kind of dabbed off the extra white to make it nice and smooth, and then went in with the moss and just made those marks in them. So once I had all my little pumpkins done, I had these floral letter stencils from Michael's. I think they're by Martha Stewart, and I thought that they would be perfect because it's fall and they look like little leaves. So I did just stencil on full using one letter to each pumpkin, and then like I said before, I don't really like anything that isn't an adhesive. The adhesive makes you give a nice crisp stencil, so that is why I like these a lot. But you can go on your computer and print it off and use your graphite paper, or you could just draw them on. It's totally up to you. So originally I was going to leave the ladder this natural wood color, but when I put the pumpkins on it, it definitely needed some color. So I did just mix up some water and antique wax and use that kind of like a stain, and then went in with a little bit of the antique wax on the end of my brush, and I went ahead and went over that a little bit more just to make it a bit more dark. Next, I just glue my pumpkins on, one on each side, or alternating between each side. And then once I had those glued down with some hot glue, then I made this bow and I glued that down. You guys love this truck ribbon. I did get it from Michael's, I believe. So I just made a simple bow, glued that down, and then last but not least, I go in and I go ahead and I make some jute bows. I made 4 of them and just glued them to the top of each little pumpkin. That is it for this video, you guys. I'm so sorry. It's been a rough one. This is actually Friday. I usually get all my stuff done on Thursday nights and have it uploaded and ready to go, but this week it did not go that way. So I was kind of at a mad dash to get this out to you guys. So I do apologize for all the slip-ups, but I am unapologetically myself. A lot of times I get a bunch of comments saying I'm so monotone, and I don't know, you guys. This is me. This is how I talk. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed making it. I think that the wagon is my favorite, but I still can't choose. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to check the description box for my new Facebook group. I wish you guys would all join. It's just a place that we can all add our crafts so everybody can see what we make. So definitely check that out. And also my P.O. box is in the description box as well. Thank you guys so much for stopping by and supporting me every single week. We are almost to 20K. I cannot believe it. So anyway, with all that being said, I will catch you guys next week. And here's my precious girl. I got her pictures done. So anyway, I love you guys. I hope you guys have a great week, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.